Our guest is on the line via Zoom, and he is going to be a part of this event at the Keswick Theater November 12th. Please welcome Michael Imperioli. Hey, Michael, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you? Congratulations.
We're doing great. Thank you. Yeah, the things are wonderful in the city of Philadelphia. Everybody's in this bizarrely great mood today, man.
Yeah, well, you deserve it.
No, thanks, man. Hey, listen, I wanted to mention how impressed I am with the type of life that you lead. You live a very, from what I've seen on the surface anyhow, a very cool, arty, awesome life. Obviously, you're a phenomenal actor. You're a musician. You're a chef. And what I wasn't aware of was the meditation that you dive into as well. You're this very well-rounded guy.
Renaissance man.
Yeah, I think that's...
I'm not a chef by any means.
You're not a chef? You like to cook, though, don't you?
I could cook okay, but I'm definitely not a chef. I do play in a band, so that's true. But chef, I wouldn't. All
right, I take that part back. I'm just that much less impressed with you.
You're just whittling away.
If you saw me in the kitchen, you would be less impressed.
I have a feeling you're probably better than you're letting on, but you're very. I was reading an interview with you, and you sort of delineated between. People were calling chefs artists, and you were saying they're craftsmen, and you kind of broke down how you feel about it. But you clearly derive joy from cooking, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think cooking's a great thing, and a great chef, is to be held in high esteem, no doubt.
All right, do the finer Italian restaurants offer unlimited breadsticks?
No. They usually don't even have breadsticks.
Hey, so with the event, in conversation with the Sopranos, Michael, what's it like? The series has been gone for a long time, but it's still a big part in the world of pop culture, and people still love it and tout it as one of the greatest television shows ever. Is it fun to still talk about it after all these years?
It's fun seeing how important the show is to fans, really. And, we do this all around the country. We've done it in Australia, actually. And I'm always amazed at how people really feel this show occupies a big place in their lives. Today, when they first saw it, a lot of people who come to our show saw it when it was first on the air, and they have memories of doing like soprano parties on Sunday with their family and friends and making pasta or ordering pizza, and they have fond memories of those times. And then people today seem to be discovering it who were too young back then, but it's really fun relating to the fans and just seeing their enthusiasm and getting to talk to them and answer their questions, and that's the fun of it for me.
It was listed. I forget who did what they were calling the definitive list of binged shows during the pandemic, and The Sopranos sat squarely in there. You have a whole bunch of new fans who had no idea of its original run.
No, that's totally true, and that's really wild. I noticed that happened right before the pandemic, maybe about a year before. It was 2019. I was shooting something here in New York in Central Park, and this 18-year-old kid from Scotland approached me and said, "I'm a big fan." He rolls up his pant leg, and there's a tattoo of me as Christopher on his leg.
Oh, wow.
On his calf. And I was like, what? First of all, you're 18, you're from Scotland, and you tattooed yourself. And he's like, no, I'm a big fan. And from then on, I realized, oh, wow, the younger generation is discovering this show and really, really, really liking it. I'm on Instagram, and I got this week a whole load of photos of mostly young people dressed as me and Adriana for Halloween.
Wow.
That's so cool.
Michael, I've watched the show 3 times from beginning to end. It's probably my favorite show of all time. And the first time I watched it was when it was airing originally. And there was these interesting spaces that took place in between the episodes and the seasons. There were long gaps. You would kind of forget what was going on. And then the third time that I watched it was during the pandemic. I watched it with my girlfriend who had never seen it before. So it was cool for me to revisit characters that I knew, to see you again. But I always maintained in my mind anyway, that Tony was a real person, that Christopher was a real person. When I wasn't watching episodes of The Sopranos, I was wondering, what's Carmela getting at the grocery store today? The way that writing conveyed the characters to me, and then, of course, your performances, it just seemed like such a real show. And yes, it was mafia-based and mob-based, but it just seemed to me like the characters made that show so wonderful.
Yeah, and I think that especially people in the Northeast, the East Coast, the people in, New York, New Jersey, Boston, Philly especially as well, who kind of understand those people, who have been around those people. I don't mean mafia. I mean like Italian Americans, middle class, working class, and kind of get it. It's I think even more, you think they're real people, and you look at them that way.
It's interesting because obviously you were in Goodfellas as well as a Spider, and you've had a couple of experiences with movies that do deal with the mafia and obviously The Sopranos. And you'll hear occasionally, going back to the Godfather, that occasionally the mob will become fans of these projects and will offer consulting advice. Have you, in your time, gotten a little bit of input, been critiqued by anyone associated with the mob?
I was offered some consultation. I was at Rayo's. I don't know if you know what Rayo's is, a restaurant in East Harlem, New York, that you can't really go to. You kind of own a table. So, like, you have Monday night. And so it's, and that's it. And if you give up your table that for Monday night, someone else can go. So it's a lot of celebrities. It's mob guys. It's judges. It's singers. You never know who's going to be there. It could be Billy Joel. It could be the head of the, Colombo family or something. Okay. You never know who's going to be next to you. But I was there with Tony Sirico, rest his soul, and Vinny Pastore. And Tony knew the guy at the next table he passed away. I think he was a captain in the Genovese family, and he came over to the table to say hello. And he goes, "Hey, and you, if you really, your kid, if you really want to know how to," and he motioned strangling someone with a piano wire.
Yeah.
If you really want to know how to do that, I can teach you.
Oh,
and I was like,
wow. Okay,
I'm okay for now.
I'm waiting on my breadsticks.
Yeah. We're gonna order some coffee in a minute, and we'll talk. But
that's great.
That happened.
Great. Yeah,
I can imagine. Well, listen, with obviously the event and The Sopranos going on, now I haven't had a chance to see it yet, but White Lotus is entering into its second season. Nick has been watching.
Yeah, I loved the first season, and Michael, it was incredible. And then I think only two characters coming back from the first season and the second, and then your character is visiting Sicily with his father, played by F. Murray Abraham, and then you bring your son along as well. Great show, beautiful setting for both seasons. Where do they shoot season 2 for White Lotus?
We were in Sicily for the first 2 months, 2 months plus actually. We were in Taormina, which is the East Coast, Mediterranean coast there, and then we traveled around a bit to Palermo and some other cities. But working in Sicily was a dream gig. And speaking of what you said about people, you thinking you knew Tony, right? So on Instagram, people are watching White Lotus. They're going, "Great job, Tony would be proud."
What? That's how. But I understand that. It just permeates. I was surprised to learn, Michael, that the James Gandolfini, you guys are just about 4 or 5 years apart in age.
Yeah, that's interesting because a lot of people always think. They were like, was James like a mentor to you? Did you, and it's like, no, James and I were much closer in age than Christopher and Tony were.
Right.
A lot further apart. We were just pals, we were kind of, when we started at similar places in our career, both of us had done some good stuff. We had, decent reputations. We weren't, known by everybody, and then The Sopranos obviously changed everything, and he became, a gigantic star. And he had just gotten married. I had already had a couple of kids. He had a kid right after we started, and we kind of, we were buddies. I miss him terribly. He was a very good friend, and what a tremendous actor and a really great guy. We talk quite a bit about Jim. In the Conversation show, we have some stories about him and about who he was, and some fun and some kind of touching ones.
Michael, I got to spend some time with Michael Gandolfini, who of course played young Tony in The Many Saints of Newark, and then Alessandra Nivola played your fictional father in that movie. It's a really interesting take on the Sopranos world. You know, it's a prequel that's a movie and not an extended TV series. What were your thoughts on it? Because I enjoyed it, but it's anybody that goes in to see that movie, it's different than the show, but it's different from the show by its very nature. It's a movie versus 6 seasons of a television program.
Yeah, I enjoyed it for the mythology, kind of like the origin stories of the characters, and just I thought it was very creative that way and reflective of its time because it takes place mostly in the 60s. I thought there were some great performances, but I really liked the way they delved into the history, you know, and some of the stuff that I didn't really even know about the characters, and that would reverberate into the actual series of The Sopranos. It was fun.
I wanted to ask you, because you've worked a number of times with Spike Lee, Clockers, Jungle Fever, Girl 6,
Malcolm X.
Malcolm X. That is, to me, is a I know to many, a staggering masterpiece. Obviously you work well together. Any particular memories from that set and you know, basically Denzel becoming Malcolm X and an incredible performance? Anything you remember specifically that jumps to mind?
Well, I had a tiny bit in that one. I played a reporter interviewing him after his house gets firebombed. But I just remember being in the makeup trailer, and the chair next to me was empty. And then they were just, you know, kind of combing my hair and putting makeup on. And then when I looked over again, he was in the chair. Like, he came in very quietly. And he wasn't Denzel at that point. Like, he was Malcolm X. Like,
Wow.
there was no chit-chat, like, hey, I saw you in this, or how's it, you know, it was like he was way deep into that character, and it certainly translated to the screen.
Yeah.
What a performance that was. Yeah.
As an actor, have you found yourself in that zone before in some of the roles you've taken on?
Sure.
Yeah.
You do get to that place when you're in something, especially something where you're working a lot, like every day or something, you know, a job like that, but you should also find it in your relationships to other actors, you know. Like, I mean, this didn't happen on purpose. Murray Abraham and I are now very good friends. I'm actually going to go celebrate his birthday on Friday with my wife. My wife was with me in Sicily, and the three of us spent a lot of time together. But you're working as father and son, and you kind of look to find those ways in and those parallels, and it turned into a really great friendship. But and I think that translates to the screen in this show.
Michael, while we have you on, I have to ask you about the Pine Barrens episode. It's ridiculously, it's so damn funny. When I watched it again, the way that you and Tony Sirico get lost in the woods in New Jersey, and there's all these miscommunications happening. I don't know if you've watched it in subsequent years, but it's, you know, you see these shows and you think, oh, this is a drama, but damn, was that episode hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, people always talk about, you know, like I did this show this year on Hulu called This Fool, which is a flat-out half-hour comedy. And people are like, do you like doing comedy? I'm like, to me, The Sopranos was as much as a comedy as anything. You know, the miracle of the Pine Barrens was, well, A, we didn't shoot in the Pine Barrens because there was some kind of council person or local politician who wouldn't give us the permits because he said The Sopranos made Italians look bad. That guy wound up getting arrested on corruption charges. That's true. That's a true story.
Yeah.
Irony.
So we shot it in New York, upstate New York, near West Point. It was not meant to be shot in the snow. So the few days before we were going up to shoot it, there was this blizzard, and they're like, we're going to have to postpone it. And someone said, wait a second. This could be gold.
Yeah.
It's even more of an alien landscape. They're even more fish out of water. They're not prepared for the snow. They're wearing Gucci loafers, you know.
They're eating ketchup packets.
Yeah, I think that made it even better. That was just luck.
That's great.
If you're just tuning in, Michael Imperioli is going to be at Keswick Theater on November 12th for In Conversation with the Sopranos. Michael, Nick had mentioned, you know, whether you had asked if you had seen an episode, that particular episode. And I was curious how often it does happen because you keep yourself wrapped up in many projects that you will watch the finished project because, you know, you spend hours and hours on the set and doing your job. but obviously there's hours and hours afterwards of work that has to be done in post. And I don't know if you eventually go back and do watch those episodes or films that you're in every time or just occasionally, or you might, just stumble upon it by accident. How does it usually work?
I need a lot of distance before I watch something, just because when it's fresh, like White Lotus was shot in, the spring basically, and I'm not ready to watch that just because I get too caught up in what I didn't do rather than what I did.
Yeah.
What I wished I did, what I should have done. I can't have any kind of objective enjoyment of it. So I kind of let it sit for a while when it's way too late to worry about it.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you as well because I'm a fan of Summer of Sam, and that's I think that's a very underrated movie, and you co-wrote the screenplay on that, correct?
I did. I co-wrote it with a guy named Victor Colicchio and Spike. Victor and I started that script, and then I brought it to Spike.
Wow.
To direct it. I wanted to direct it originally, and Spike was going to executive produce it, and we couldn't get a deal. I wasn't really ready to do something like that, and it died for a while, and then Spike said, I think I want to do this, and we were like, fantastic. But I just saw it again after a long time, a couple weeks ago. Spike teaches at NYU, and he brought myself and John Leguizamo in for the class, and they screened it. And in some ways, I think it's more... I think it resonates more now than it did when it came out. Because it's about a lot of things that are currently going on in our society, and I think and I'm not talking about serial killer. I'm just talking about, fear and xenophobia and hatred and judgment and things. And I'm really proud of that one.
Do you know it's
a great movie
to me? Because I remember clearly being in New York when all that was going on, and to me it is one of those sort of pitch perfect snapshots where it's like, oh yeah, that's what it was like. That's what it was like. And it's kind of like looking through, no one would keep a scrapbook of Son of Sam, but it is that kind of experience.
Yeah, and there's never really been anything like that in New York since, thank God.
Yeah.
Because, where the whole city is really in fear of maybe being the next victim of some, serial killer.
I clearly remember.
That has not happened.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think it could really, because the way surveillance is different, there's cameras everywhere, so it would be a lot harder for that to happen, thank God. But, man, was it if you lived through it, you know exactly what went on.
Absolutely.
And you did a cool way of weaving some pop culture in the punk movement, with Adrian Brody's character and all that stuff.
Right.
Was that based on people you knew, or
it was a little bit based on some people that Victor knew. He's older than me, so I was only 11 during that summer, so I wasn't going to clubs or hanging, or anything like that. But he was older, so he remembered really what was going on then. So yeah. So he lived in the Bronx. I lived in Mount Vernon, which was Berkowitz lived right, 2 miles away from me.
Wow,
so some of that stuff happened very close to where we lived.
We're talking about the punk movement and your own musical taste. You're I know you're a fan of the Dolls, and you're kind of like an indie rock kind of fan, correct?
My band Zopa is an indie rock band who we played in Philly in August at Johnny Brenda's. Yeah, and we played in January. We played at Kung Fu Necktie, and I have to say, the Philly crowds, and I'm not saying this because I'm with you guys. It's really true. You ask my bandmates. The Philly crowds are the most fun, most enthusiastic. Really, just really get you going and energetic. And those two shows were highlights of. We had a midwinter tour and we had a little midsummer tour, and those were highlights of the.
That's cool to hear. I mean, you got some accolades, if I'm remembering correctly. Rolling Stone gave you a nice nod as well, correct?
Yeah, we were on the best of 20. Our album La Dolce Vita was on the best of 2021 list, which was
that's pretty wild.
Very unexpected, but very welcomed.
With that, and have you had a chance to meet some of your musical heroes, or even better so, had a chance to jam with anybody of that level?
I don't know. Jamming on that level is a little weird. I did do a benefit last year for God's Love We Deliver in New York, and I got to play. There was like 30 musicians on stage, so there was a lot of guitars. Mine was probably the sound engineer probably turned mine way down.
All the way down.
ZZ Top was on stage, as was Warren Haynes and some other like geniuses. But that was standing kind of 10 feet away from Billy Gibbons on stage was pretty wild.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And talking about The Sopranos, I mean, did you ever get to play with Little Steven, or were any Bruce influences or anything along those lines when you were filming The Sopranos?
We went to see Bruce. The Sopranos went to see Bruce in New Jersey, which seeing Bruce in New Jersey is an experience, and it's like, I don't know, it's like seeing the Pope in Rome. Or something.
It's kind of where you need to see him. Yeah,
that was pretty amazing. And my uncle, who turned me on to Bruce when I was a kid, who was a lifelong Bruce fan, I took him, and he got to meet Bruce, which blew his mind.
Wow,
man.
So that was cool.
Nice perks.
Is little Steven Van Zandt somebody you stay in touch with or run into from time to time?
We all stay in touch together.
That's great.
I mean, this show, and particularly the In Conversation here that we're coming to Philly with, is Steve Sharippa and myself. We did the podcast together, Sopranos podcast, and Vincent Pastore, who played Big Pussy. It's the three of us. But the Sopranos, a lot of us knew each other before The Sopranos. Like, I knew Vinny before. I knew John Ventimiglia, who played Artie Bucco. I knew Edie. I knew Tony Sirico. And so that success that we had together on that show even bonded us further like a family. So it still has that vibe,
There's got to be a flow chart of all you guys, of all the movies that have tendrils to one another, where all of you connected, and it's got to be voluminous.
Yeah, because to be honest, the Italian-American actor community in New York is not that big. So, I ran into Catherine Narducci the other day. She played Artie Bucco's wife, Charmaine.
Okay.
She's doing a new movie where she plays De Niro's wife again, because she played De Niro's wife in A Bronx Tale. She played Joe Pesci's wife in The Irishman. She played my wife in Witness to the Mob. She goes, I feel like I just get passed around from blind guy to wise guy.
You're a hell of a wife. Speaking of that, I have to say, because you're Spider in Goodfellas, and you have a couple of scenes that are just, amusing and super tense. And you're obviously you're at a younger point in your career. When you have Scorsese, De Niro, Pesci, and you have in that particular scene them turning their uncertainty and their rage at you, or specifically Joe Pesci, is it hard not to lose concentration? Because to me, that would seem a terrifying place, even though you're acting, to be at the end of that craziness.
Yeah, well, I had been doing film for a year at that point. I'd done 3 little parts in 3 movies. This was the 4th. Obviously, to me, it was it was like going from college baseball to the World Series.
Yeah,
really, for me, for an Italian-American kid actor from New York, that's how big it was. Scorsese and De Niro were like idols of mine. But oddly enough, I was less nervous on that than I was in the prior things, because Marty Scorsese made me feel like I belonged there. And he made me feel like I was an actor. And he gave me a lot of freedom. Most of what you see on screen was improvisation.
Wow.
Hardly anything in the script. We changed it every time. He trusted me to do that with those guys. And I'll never forget it. He was so generous and so kind and respectful, as were the actors, at a time when I was very vulnerable and very green. And, I think it's a testament to why Marty's so great.
Did he
great performance.
Did he specifically come to you and say some words like, look, you belong here. You're here for a reason? Or did he do it, or is it more his actions?
Not kind of, when I got there, I was in the trailer, and he came over and he said, that's my trailer. If you have any questions, you come over and talk to me. He said, he couldn't have been nicer. It's just a thing of made me feel like I was part of the company.
Oh, that's great.
As did the other actors. And, it was my first movie role was in a movie called Lean on Me.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you're one of the punk kids.
I had one line and it got cut because I was really nervous and really bad. And the director John Alvinson, who did Rocky,
Yeah.
directed the first Rocky. I think he was overwhelmed with like 1,000 high school kids in an auditorium, and just didn't have any patience for me, and it was a really bad experience.
Ah.
And Goodfellas was completely the opposite. You know?
It's an amazing thing. It is that moment in time. Obviously, sadly, Ray Liotta, passed, but you know what? So many. It's weird to talk about this style or this genre of mafia films and television shows, Sopranos and everything. We're forever fascinated by it because I think it probably has Shakespearean elements to it, as The Sopranos does. It's in many cases, as the original Godfather was sold to Paramount as a family story, and it just happened to be a mob family. Do you think that's the constant draw for audiences to this material?
I can't help separate the fact that if you look at like the holy trinity of mobdom is The Godfather, Goodfellas, and Sopranos, right?
Yeah.
To me, those are the three monumental works. You can't separate the fact that you had some of the greatest artists working on that. Coppola, Scorsese, David Chase, Brando, De Niro, Pacino, Joe Pesci, Ray Liotta, James Gandolfini, Edie Falco. I don't think you can separate the fact, because believe me, there's a lot of crap mob stuff, some of which I've been in. So I think the fact that the material's rich, and then you had that list I just named of the great artists in television and film in our time.
Right.
Doesn't really get much better.
True.
I don't think you can separate those things.
No.
It opens it up to some fun comedy, too, because Analyze This is still, I think it could be one of the funnier mob takes.
It's pretty funny. When I got the script of The Sopranos, the pilot, Analyze This had just either come out or I had auditioned for it or something. And I was like, is this another spoof?
Yeah.
A mob guy in therapy? I wasn't sure what The Sopranos, because it's hard to tell from just the pilot script, because that's all you get when you audition for a series, where it was going to go.
Right.
You can't really tell from the pilot. Pilot was good, but you can't tell the scope of what it would be,
Speaking of therapy, something that clearly is therapeutic for you and was not aware of this being a big part of your life, Michael, is the meditation. And you even host virtual meditation classes. I was not familiar with that. If you could tell us about that, I'm intrigued.
I do. Yeah. So my wife and I became Buddhists in 2008. And part of Buddhist practice is meditation. And then when I got onto social media, it was right before the pandemic, and I would post a lot of stuff during the pandemic about Buddhism. So a lot of people would message me about meditation, especially during the pandemic when people were really stressed out, and having a lot of anxiety and really, looking for something for help. And I would message people back. This is how you meditate. You do this, and it happened a lot. So I was like, maybe I should make a video for these people, and it turned into, I did an Instagram Live, which was an absolute disaster, because I'm technically, really bad. But a kid from Chicago said, "Do you need tech help?" And I gave him my phone number. He called me, and now he produces this free Zoom webinar, which I promote on Instagram, and people register and get an email, and they go on Zoom, and we have students in different countries. It's totally free. Everybody's welcome, and that started 2.5 years ago.
And how often do you do this?
Every Sunday, unless I'm traveling or the producer's working or something, but pretty consistently every Sunday.
It's got to be
people, honestly, believe it or not, some of the students have become Buddhists, which is not what we're trying. We're not trying to convert people. That's not what we do. But some people have. But some of them have been with us for 2 years.
I've attempted mindful meditation with guided with the app. I've forgotten the name of it because I've bailed on it. But I had a hard time. What was it, Kath?
Is it Mindset?
No, Headspace. That was it. And I personally had a hard time making it happen. And I gave it a few weeks of trying it out. Is it just did it come easy for you personally?
No, I don't think it comes easy for anybody.
Okay.
Everybody I talk to says the same thing, what you just said. I think it helps to have a teacher to kind of inspire you and bring you along the way. And I think that's what works for me. Maybe that's why people have stuck with us for a couple of years, because they kind of like the way we approach it. But it is something that's, because the mind is very busy. The mind thinks, the mind races, the mind doesn't stop. It's got its own movie going on all the time.
Yeah.
And that's normal. And you have to kind of realize that and just, it's a process that, like anything else, learning to do anything else takes a while.
Is it helpful to have a teacher could instantly mobilize mob lieutenants to make you calm down?
I think that's part of our success.
Michael, I tried mindful meditation, with guided meditation, and the lady who was guiding me had a nose whistle, and it was hilarious. I mean, I was cracking up in the middle of this thing because every time she breathed in, I heard a...
But you were happy while doing it, right? Because it was funny.
I was really happy.
He's cracking up.
Yeah, there's a lot that can distract.
What time are the Sunday sessions? What time of day
Usually
do you do
10
that?
o'clock Eastern.
Oh, I can
Sounds
handle
great.
that.
It sounds awesome.
Tune in from Indonesia and Israel, and believe it or not, a lot of different countries. It's pretty wild. Mostly Americans, but not exclusively.
It's got to be fulfilling to know that you help get, especially during the thick of it. People are very kind, and they'll say that our show, provided a little bit of solace and comfort to get through all that. But to give people some tools that help them get through that, it has to be something that you really cherish.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's something that's meaningful to me, and if there's people that are interested and you have an opportunity to share that, I think it's important to do so. Yeah, without a doubt.
Well, speaking of sharing, there will be stories aplenty shared in conversation with The Sopranos, which is coming up at the Keswick Theater November 12th. And not only will Michael be there, but Vincent Pastore and Stephen Sharippa as well. So you can get those tickets through KeswickTheater.com. Michael, so great to talk to you, man. Thanks for taking this time today. And we're huge fans, and we appreciate all the entertainment through the years.
My pleasure. Thanks for letting me come on today.
Anytime. Thank you. Michael Imperioli, guys. Wow, very cool.